with this stupid technology stuff. So let's kick off with some notes. I am going to try and crash through them a little bit. I'm going to pull out my note packet so I can go along with you guys. And get my life together. Let's see. Chances are pretty short of that happening. So we went through resilient versus resistant, the intermediate disturbance hypothesis. I told you guys we are not doing that biointeractive. I think I have it as like part A in your packet or something. We are not doing that. I think this is where we left off. Hopefully that's correct. I will have to, and this will be weird because I'm down to one screen. In order to see the chat, I'm going to have to keep popping up like that. Is it okay if I leave my screen like this? Like, can you guys still see, other than Leland's face, can you still see the screen for the most part?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
you
I can.
Move
okay, thank you. Because, yeah, so, like, anytime, oh my gosh. I should join on my phone. If I knew how to do that really quickly, I would.
Why does only my face show up here?
Because you're the only one with the with your camera on, so it defaults to show the person with the camera. That's not me.
Oh, that makes sense.
Lucky you.
But it always does that for one person, even if everybody's on camera.
Oh, does it? I know it rotates through it sometimes, so we're looking at, and I know it says, like, with your partner, note at least 5 interesting pieces of information. We're just going to talk about it from these graphs right here. So we have a sea level rise and fall record, and it's, oh my gosh, I can't even read that. It's M something. I can't read it. But so probably some sort of like meters or some sort of distance within land. And you can see average would be here right about 0. And then it has the same x-axis as the graph down below, so ages before present. So our current would be over this way. And now we can't always get 100% of sea level data. Why might that be?
Wait, what?
We don't have 100% of sea level data. Why might that be?
Probably because we can't explore the deepest depths of the ocean.
Well, remember, sea level is like how far it comes up on the continent, so we're not looking at necessarily the depths of the ocean.
Okay. It could probably be because water covers about like 90% of the Earth.
All right. Not far off, but when we're looking at historical records, especially this many years ago, were there scientists around to take these measurements?
Probably not.
Probably not. So we have to go off the information that we can get, not that everything is available. Things like CO2 level is a lot easier to get because we can get those typically from ice core. And those can track every year. We can radioactively date it, figure out what year that ice formed, and it traps the CO2 levels in that ice. When it comes to sea level, it's a lot more iffy because we don't necessarily have a way to track that throughout geologic history. So that's why you see a lot of gaps in the graph above and not in the graph below. So what's the commonality? What do you see between these graphs? Leland doesn't want to be highlighted. Oh. All right. Frozen carbon dioxide is literal. Yeah, carbon dioxide is what makes dry ice. Yep. I'm going to see if I can join on my phone while you guys come up with something.
Keeling, whatever that word is. What's that mean?
The Keeling curve?
Oh, is that is? I see half of it missing on my screen.
Oh, yeah, the Keeling curve Keeling curve talks about just even the natural fluctuation of carbon dioxide within our normal atmosphere. So the stuff that's even just totally normal.
Okay.
The phone's frozen. All right. I have to reach out to the basement window.
They both measure carbon dioxide.
This top one, not so much. I'm talking, sorry, I guess I should be a little bit more clear, I guess. This is an estimated graph that kind of takes this information into account. And dang, it's still frozen. And then this is our actual measurement of CO2. So these are both sea level. This is a little bit more estimated. It's not 100%. But what's a similarity between these graphs? I saw people were typing earlier.
Ice cores that's generally in water, so that they could both be measuring something with water.
Okay. To be honest, you don't have a clue. I will take that 100% of the time. We are in 7th period, right? There we go. I got text on my phone now. All right. So when you're looking at these graphs, and there's a reason that these two have the same x-axis, except for now it's not showing up on my phone. Ah, that was beautiful, Jalen. I like that one even better. So it is, the reason that these are both on the same x-axis is because there's a correlation between the amount of CO2 in our atmosphere and a rise in sea level. So this one, especially with our similar x-axis, you can see the different peaks and valleys. So you kind of see these peaks come in at the same time. And the valleys come in as well. Now on this one, this is from 1960 to 2010. So this is 50 years of data that is really recent where we have been able to track actual sea level change. And this is just showing that there is a gentle rising. So even when you get these dips and peaks and valleys, things like that, you still get a constant change and a trend. Salinity of CO2 is not a thing. CO2 is a gas, and salinity typically deals with water.
Well, I know that, but I'm saying that that's what it should be called in a way for what this graph is measuring.
So this is atmospheric gas that gets trapped in ice. This is sea level, like oceans. So atmosphere, ocean.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense.
And thank you for making me clarify. So that's kind of one of the biggest correlations. That's why that's one of the greenhouse gases that we typically look at and things like that. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense now. All right, causes of habitat changes. So we're in letter C down below. We have natural and unnatural ones. So we're always going to have natural things like wind, so erosion and deposition, things like that. You're going to have fires like we did in Waldo Canyon. You're going to have flooding that happens all the time. It's totally normal. And then the unnatural changes of habitats, agriculture, we tend to demolish prairie lands for it, settlement, urban sprawl, other human uses, whatever it may be. All right. The one thing that has been a bigger push since about the mid 80s, early 90s, when they really started pushing like climate change and things like that, is remediation or restoration ecology. You also get it called mitigation. That was one of the jobs I used to have, where I would take a place that has been destroyed, and then we would work away, find the appropriate plants, make sure water falls down hills at the right angles, things like that, and try and rebuild ecosystems that had been demolished previously. I'm going to move Leland's photo to the other side really quick so you can see this picture too. And that...
I can't read the slide now. Because
You what?
the teams thing. Oh. There we go. Now I can read it.
There we go. Leland's face is in the way. All right, so over here you could see a dying area, and then being able to kind of refurbish it, get the water back to where it was originally before any of the human influence. So that is kind of some of the things that a lot of states are looking at doing, at least in America. We're not going to say that's a worldwide push for sure. All right. So come up with your own fictional but realistic example of a population being forced to change their habitat due to a natural occurrence. So take a couple minutes, come up with that. I would like to see you guys throw, I'm not talking like a whole story, don't write a novel, do it in a few sentences and copy and throw it into the chat. I'd like to see what you guys put. Everyone always goes back to the Ice Age. That dang squirrel. There's a lot more specific and time, like Ice Ages take hundreds and hundreds and like thousands of years, but there's changes that can be even within a lifetime. So think of that as well. Yes, I can. Oh, Jalen brought up a great one. That's actually a local issue. It's actually an entire Western state issue, like Nevada, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Montana, is the pine beetles and the trees. So when the pine beetles end up killing the pine trees, you have, what is it? The habitats where birds would nest or anything like that, then they're gone. So now those trees affect, or those beetles affect the trees, which affect the birds. The birds affect the ability for a lot of shrubs and other trees to reproduce and get their seeds moved around, and it just keeps going down. The Lorax situation, absolutely. I forget, what was I watching last night that made me think of the Lorax? I don't remember. Copyright it.
Was it ever a real sentence to begin with?
Not that I've heard of. The Clorox. The bleaching of society. What is my dog doing? All right, so definitely appreciate some of those examples. Let's see, it looks like we got one more type in. My dog over here burping for you guys. Hopefully you can't hear that.
The what?
My dog is over here burping. I hope you can't hear that. Lovely.
I was wondering what that weird noise was.
Yeah, whenever she puts her head on my lap, most of the time she burps. Yeah, that's totally right, Keenan. Totally right. So we're going to look at wildlife mitigation, and I just copied the questions onto the slide, but they are in your packet. You're going to be looking at which animals migrate, what are some of the reasons for migration, and predicting how does climate change impact migrating birds. So hopefully I can get this to work. Where's my sound?
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct, but it's...
Okay, no one cares about grammar. I'm hoping you guys don't have to watch it on your own. It's not that bad though, and I feel bad because some of the text is being covered up by my start bar, and I can't get rid of my start bar. So, yay, tech issues. So if it's frozen for you guys, you might have to do it on your own. The nice thing is you don't have to listen necessarily. I forgot this one doesn't have any speech. But it does talk about some things. There's one I do want to point out. I'm still waiting for an answer back. The albatross soars for 7 months above southern oceans before returning to the same nest. One thing, just put it on theater mode. That's true. I don't know what theater mode is, but I can do that. The albatross is above oceans for 7 months out of the year. I have applied to the federal Fish and Wildlife Department for what's called an albatross bolus, which is like their stomach and their contents for you guys to be able to dissect if we ever get back into school. But it's really interesting knowing that they're above the ocean for 7 months, and the things that you find in their stomachs are naturally found in oceans. So it's kind of one of those things. Yeah. Do you guys want me to try the video a second time or just do it on your own?
Yes.
Try it a second time. It's very short.
It started working right before you stopped it.
Did it? Okay.
Look.
So, what are some of the animals that they said that migrate?
Elephants.
Elephants, good, KK. The shark, birds, the albatross. You can go into usually the Japanese markets around town and find some albatross in the meat department.
You
They're
can
big.
actually find that in the meat department.
Yeah, they're rather big birds. They're not condor big, but they're big. And then what are some of the reasons that they migrate?
To find food or find prayer.
Okay. Absolutely. What else?
Fish migrate.
Yeah.
Well, certain types.
Yeah, certain ones do. Like they even mentioned with the sharks, the sea lions themselves migrate. So
Right.
just to migrate and get eaten by sharks. But they do it as well. You have a lot of fluctuations in like water temperature, so you'll see a lot of those aquatic animals migrate due to that. So I'm gonna show you one more. This one's even shorter. Oh dang. And hyperlink it because your teacher's special. Woo.
Imagine the places we'll go. Together. Expedia.
All right, that gave you a few more examples, and it actually made me think of a very annoying local migration. Do you guys have any idea what I'm talking about?
The geese.
Not
Well,
the geese.
That's not really annoying, but
There's one way more annoying than that.
does it have anything to do with an actual animal?
Yes. There's a gross one here and a gross one down in Pueblo that happens all the time. Not gnats. Gnats are just everywhere, I think. Ugh.
Oh, I got one.
What?
Rats.
Mm-mm.
Mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes. I mean, kind of, not really. You guys know miller moths, right?
Yeah, they don't bother me much though. Those little tiny moths stay outside.
The ones that like end up covering houses.
Oh, those aren't miller moths.
Yeah, those are. That's the miller moth migration that we get through Colorado Springs.
I thought miller moths were smaller.
I mean, they range in size, but I mean, they're like inch or two. Locusts definitely do. You guys don't know the migration that happens in Pueblo? Oh my god. This is why I'll never go down there.
Spiders.
Yes, tarantulas. They have like so many tarantulas you can't even see the ground. It's gross. Yeah, so you'll never catch me down there. Despite the fact I like tarantulas, that's just too many. Horseflies suck. So what makes modern day change with anthropogenic causes? I've told you guys a million times that word's going to come back to haunt you. Different from all previous and natural change. And those two things are frequency, so how often it happens, and the intensity of it, like how much is going on. So this is almost kind of like that intermediate hypothesis, right? If it's too much, too quick, things are going to go bad. So it feeds right back into that. So can ecosystems recover from intense frequent disturbances? Sometimes, but it's going to have a threshold point, right? It's going to get to the point where it can't do it anymore, especially if it's not a very diverse ecosystem to begin with. All right, so that's the end of this one. I'm going to jump over to the next one, which is adaptions, which is what I intended on doing today, just so we don't fall too much behind. Is everyone good with this? I can close out of it. All right. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. So hopefully you guys can see it okay. Well, I might actually be able to do that because I have this open on my phone now. So the next one is adaptions. We're definitely going to touch a little bit on evolution, which for you sophomores, I kind of feel bad for because you never got to this, the good part of this stuff in biology last year.
I did.
Sorry.
Well, Mr. Della, you did.
So Delha and I were only like a day apart as far as instruction goes, and we actually didn't get all the way through here.
Yeah, we got like maybe half.
Yeah,
Oh.
the genetics, like ecology, all that stuff, gone. Like we did a little bit of evolution, but we planned to put most of it with genetics and like the pedigree charts and the Punnett squares, stuff like that, and we never got to that. So we weren't allowed to give you guys new information at the end of fourth quarter. My favorite insult, by the way, is to call people sophomoric.
Wait, what?
Sophomoric is actually, calling someone sophomoric is actually an insult.
What's it mean?
It means like, oh, what's a good way to put it? Like, they're high and mighty, juvenile, they think they know everything, that type. And yes, so. Yeah, it's an insult. It's my favorite one. All right, so a little bit of natural selection. The theory of natural selection was developed by, somebody got to know that.
Charles Darwin.
I was going to say, if you didn't know, it was right in the picture. And he first presented his book, The Origin of Species. Yep. Darwin with the extra few N's. Very nice. All right, and then, so natural selection is the differential ability to survive and reproduce. So it's like everyone always says survival of the fittest, but it's not like strength, anything like that. So whenever we talk about fitness, we're talking about general ability to adapt. Okay. See you later, Naija. All right. So the theory of natural selection. The first part is you have to have the struggle for existence among organisms. What would they struggle and compete for?
Natural resources.
Which would be like
Food,
shelter, water, mates to reproduce with, things like that. Gotta struggle to survive. Territory, food, and women. There is a physical and behavioral variation in living organisms as well. So physical and behavioral traits do affect natural selection. You can even think of these different types of dogs or different types of people. Certain behaviors, certain instincts are going to get you that little bit of edge, right? If we throw a chow out into the wild versus a Yorkshire Terrier, which one of those two dogs is going to survive longer?
The one that has more breeds mixed with it.
Not necessarily. Think of a personality, if you guys know, personality of a chow versus the personality of a Yorkie. Horses is a good example too, absolutely. In our packets, under natural selection, there's box 1, which was the one before this, the struggle for existence. Box 2 is this part right here. Chows are very aggressive, yes. They're known as one of the more aggressive breeds out there. So chows probably, yeah, that would be a good answer. So chows probably, some of your terriers and your hounds are probably going to have a better chance of it surviving food-based wise. They're a little bit better hunters. Your Eskimo and your Keeshond have the double coats in order to withstand some better temperatures. I mean, Yorkies, they look like rats with really long hair, so it's just kind of one of those things. They might not be as good as at finding what is it, like food and things like that. They might be better at shelter though. So just different physical behavior aspects. All right. Third one is organisms with higher fitness, more helpful adaptations, more likely to survive. So over here you have a whole bunch of moss, just different types. I know you guys live in eastern Colorado, but you go to western Colorado and some other more wet areas of the US, this is going to be nonstop everywhere. Like this is essentially my dad's front yard because moss takes over, grass can't even grow. Obviously, lion in their teeth, they have to be able to shred their meals.
I'm sorry, Miss Peterson. Can you go back to the third slide? I just need the rest of the origin.
Oh, origin of species.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Am I good to go on from this one? Everyone good? All right. The fourth box, and I think this is your final box. Yep. Over time, a natural selection will ensure that certain characteristics appear more and more often as if they were passed through generations. Entire species change over time this way. So this is almost like your definition. It's not like one day a chimpanzee gives birth to an ape. That's not how it happened. It's a divergence in characteristics and which ones become more popular. So over time, you can see the evolution of how we get a orca whale. I was going to say killer whale, which is still right, but I like calling them orcas better. They're beautiful. And how they go from, I mean, even land bearing at this point, and then slowly more things are becoming more and more aquatic in their environment over thousands of years, not over a generation or two. And that is still today why you see hip bones and phalanges, elbows, things like that when you actually look at the skeleton of an orca or another whale or dolphin, things like that, which I always think is really cool. And so what I was kind of talking about on that last slide is actually called common descent or descent with modification. You'll see it written both ways. It means the exact same thing. And that theory is that every living species that is around today has descended from other species over time. And so instead of seeing the brackets like you saw on the last slide, you kind of have like a tree of life with your bacteria, your eubacteria, your archaeobacteria, where's your fungi, I can't even see some of that, your plants, your animals, things like that, all branching out. And so you get the differentiation, like diatoms are the small microscopic plants that are in the oceans and waters, lakes, all of that stuff. They eventually, some of them stayed diatoms, some of them ended up evolving with new traits and being able to become multicellular organisms like green algae. And then green algae eventually kind of got a little bit more landborne, and some of it stayed green algae, but some of it turned over time into something like a fern, and so on. So that's kind of what it's saying from. We all kind of originate from a very, very small amount of original species. All right, so this is in that black box in your notes. Put these words in order and like use a few sentences to summarize natural selection. So I'll give you a minute to do that before I move on. Not necessarily. This could be done in a lot of different ways, Leland. And I'm saying to use them in sentences. So like, in order for populations to survive and reproduce, you know, genes eventually mutate, those mutations can change individual, stuff like that. All right, hopefully I'm good to move on. So why are humans so successful? So there's 3 different adaptations that have allowed us to be a lot more successful than most other species, and so much more widespread. And one of them is walking upright. So we can use arms in order to multitask almost while we're on the move. And the other reason walking upright has become so... Okay, very nice, Leland. I like it. The other reason upright is made us more successful is because we're able to see anything threatening a lot more from standing up and being able to look rather than being hunched down over and only being able to really look up. So being able to multitask with arms and see further. Another thing that we've got is our opposable thumbs. One of my favorite labs of all time. I did not get to do with my biology last year, I don't think. Is I love, maybe we did it, I don't remember, but we, yeah, that's how we get bad backs, and that's how you guys are growing a new bone in your head, is because you're hunched over so much.
We grow a new bone in our head.
Yeah, So there's evolution that you guys are technically kind of living through right now. Some people are being born with a new bone kind of like attached to the base of their skull because you're looking down at computers and cell phones so much over the last like generation or so that it's really bad and puts a lot of stress on your spine and a lot of pressure. If I remember something, it's, don't quote me on it, but it's like a 45-degree angle of your neck. So like the average looking down at the phone. Yeah, it's something like an extra, I heard it was more than 25 pounds, but it might be an extra 25 pounds of pressure on your neck and your back. And so that's leading to a lot of issues as well. Um, all right, get rid of those transformers. So that's kind of an evolutionary trait you're living through right now. But opposable thumbs being the big one. Watching my dog try and play with me, you know, she doesn't have that opposable thumb, although she does have a dew claw. She can't grab her toys, so I can yank them right from her.
That would be a little weird if dogs had thumbs.
Right? They do have the dew claws, though, that sometimes act like it.
They're not opposable.
Yeah. Big brains for being awesome. Not necessarily being awesome, but we have, and this is like one of the things I love reading and like watching TV shows about, is like the psychology of your brains and how they work and the neurotransmissions and like what happens when somebody completely loses their frontal cortex, all types of stuff. So we're able to do so much more. If any of you ever did the frog dissections, I usually always give extra credit if people can find the brain because no one ever can. I think I've had like 3 students in 6 years of, 5 years of teaching biology actually find the brain, the real brain, because they're so tiny. So we got big brains, allows us to do a lot more. All right, why can't humans evolve to cope with our new environmental conditions? I'm going to put them both up there. So genes for new traits have to already be present in a population's gene pool, even through a random mutation. Even something like blue eyes, right, was a random mutation that got crazy. They already have to be present. If we didn't have a gene for eye color, typically a gene for eye color is not going to randomly pop up and be successful. Another one is our generation times are too long to keep up with rapidly changing conditions. So like fruit flies that only live for like 72 hours, or bacteria that are constantly reproducing within an hour or more. We can see generational evolution through them. We can't necessarily see it in our lifetime in our own species. I'll give you a second because I know there's a lot on that slide. Oh, have you seen, that reminds me, have you seen that there's a ton of animals, ton of species now that are suddenly developing the gene like jellyfish where they glow under UV light, or like my axolotl I used to have in my classroom? They, Jalen, yes, they do have a large population. But there's like species in, I've only seen it in aquatic species at the moment, but that are randomly getting that mutation where they glow under UV light. And I don't know what it is. Nobody knows why it's happening. Like, it's just baffling people's minds. It's what?
They absorb elemental fluoride.
Yeah, but they don't know why any of that's happening. They're like, what's the evolutionary reason for it happening, or, you know, things like that.
I can't see. They don't have any eyes. Well, the box jellyfish, but
yeah,
box jellyfish has 24 of them.
Does he really? Because they're super deadly.
Yeah, the box jellyfish has 24 eyes, and it's the only species of jellyfish that have them.
I did not know they had eyes, let alone 24 of them. I know they're the deadliest species of jellyfish. All right. Myths about evolution. These are untrue statements, so keep that in mind. Fitness means strong, fast, or big. Organisms develop new traits in order to help them in their environment. Not necessarily. A lot of them are generally moot and don't do anything, kind of like the UV glowing. Evolution is a constant progression towards some perfect ideal species. Not the case. Maybe towards a perfect part of their niche in their environment of their ecosystem, but not just like towards one perfect species. Oh, sorry, I'll leave that up there for a second. So in your packet it says write a true statement to counteract it. So how would you make statement number 1 true? Any ideas?
Fitness means most adapted.
Okay, most adept. I like that actually. Fitness means most adept to their environment. That would totally, absolutely work.
And then for the second one, evolution.
Say that again, sorry.
I said they evolve. The organisms evolve.
Okay. Organisms just evolve, but not, you could take out in their environment or in order to help them in their environment. They just develop new traits. It is partially true. Evolution is a constant progression towards some perfect ideal. I kind of corrected that one for you. If you wanted to be specific, it's just a constant, I wouldn't even call it progression. It's a constant adaptation. Some people can get bad or, traits that set something backwards. So it's not always ideal. Nothing is perfect. That is true. Except for me, of course. Just kidding. I'm not that bad. I'm not that vain. Yeah. I would just say organisms develop new traits, Jalen. It's in order to help them in their environment. Most traits that are developed are neither harmful or helpful. I don't want to have a trait where we live forever. Like, I don't want to die, don't get me wrong, but I don't think I could last forever. I'd be the grumpiest old lady you would ever run into. So geological processes affect evolution. One of those things is your plate tectonics, your continental drift. Our most recent, I think we've had 7 or 8 mega continents. Our most recent one is called Pangea. Typically those are what people remember. So they definitely, that's why we can find, like tropical fossils in Antarctica. We can find, like Arctic type fossils in somewhere, along like Brazil and the coast of Africa, because it was so much closer to the bottom at some point, or a pole. So locations of continents influence climate and habitats, which can influence some of these changes. The second one is the movement of the continents allow for dispersal and speciation as well as extinction. So always one of the biggest points people make is there's so many animals between South America and Africa that must have come from original similar species. So you have so many of the same fossils, and then they ended up diverting to whatever the needs of those continents were and those local ecosystems. I'm adding letters to my words today. Okay, number 3 on there is earthquakes and other disasters or natural disruptions can isolate populations leading to speciation. Earthquakes would be what separated continents, right? Other natural disruptions or unnatural disruptions can isolate populations and give that island biogeography effect that we looked at. I'm going to try and get through the rest of these before class ends because we're almost done. Volcanoes can destroy habitat and cause extinction. I mean, their primary succession, which we'll talk about, I think, is that Friday. So they also create new stuff too, but they definitely destroy it. If we still lived on Pangea, we wouldn't know anything different. I mean, that's for sure. Mass extinctions are very important, totally.
But what I meant was, like, what would have happened? Like, what species would still be alive? Which species would have died already?
Yeah, that's a good
Something like
question.
that.
Very good question. I don't have an answer. I could come up with like 500 answers for that, but I have no idea. Oops, that was 4. Oh, you can't see my number 5. Asteroid impacts. I'm going to blow it up really big. Asteroid impacts can cause a widespread extinction and climate change. Dinosaurs are totally living proof of that. That was a pun. I know dinosaurs aren't alive.
Just birds, maybe.
Well, that's true. Birds, alligators, definitely. So asteroid impacts, and then the last one on there is climate-based. Those ice ages and warming periods, they cause and change migrations. They cause extinctions. They can cause new species to evolve from that speciation. I will go back. I just wanted to get that last slide up there because it is 11:25, and therefore it's time to go. Don't worry about the assignment I have posted today because I did want to talk about it, so I'll probably move that to Friday, just because we had to play a little catch up on the notes today. Got behind last week. And then, oops, there you go. And so, yeah, don't worry about the assignment. I'm going to move it to Friday. I'll change that later today, probably during my office hours. So if you don't have any questions or need me to go back to another slide, have a wonderful day. I will see you on Friday. 3 more
Bye,
days.
citizen. Have a good day.
You too, KK.
Bye, everybody. I'll see you all on Friday. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Jalen.